Please introduce yourself and welcome to committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matthew Keenan, native Kansan, originally from Great Bend, graduated KU Law School in 1984. I practiced law in a large firm in the metro for about 37 years and then took on this job. I'm in my third year now. I'll have two introductions. TK Shively is with me from Kansas Legal Services and Matthew Cruz as well. I'm going to take about 10 minutes and give you an overview for those of you who may not appreciate what Kansas Legal Services is in, but I want to start with three major observations. Number one, you've heard a lot about criminal justice. You heard, I understand, from the public defender group a couple days ago. Kansas Legal Services is entirely civil. We don't have any involvement with individuals, generally speaking, who are charged with criminal matters. We are the lifeblood of communities that have a shrinking number of lawyers, that have populations that can't afford lawyers, and largely Kansans who are trying to get ahead. We represent about 23,000 Kansans in all 105 counties in the state. And the one thing I want to impart to you is we are a constituent service. So when you go back and you talk to the judges or the magistrates, the district attorneys, they should know Kansas Legal Services. They should have a high regard for Kansas Legal Services. We have 45 attorneys. We have 11 offices as far west as Dodge City and northeast, Hayes, Manhattan, Emporia. Every one of you has a KLS office in your district, and it's my pride and joy to really oversee the operation that we do. And so we ultimately make your communities, your constituencies, better, safer, stronger. So I want to give just a couple overviews about what we do. I have hard copies of some slides here. I'm not going to go through them because I'm a little pressed for time. But keep in mind that we're a nonprofit. We get about half of our funding, about $4.5 million from Congress. I'm happy to say that Senators Marshall and Moran know what we do, understand what we do, and support what we do. We get about $3 million from the state of Kansas. Different agencies fund us. DCF funds us. We get money from the judicial budget. And we get about $500,000 in private donations from funders who understand what we do and want to support what we do. We partner with a lot of nonprofit agencies in your district. So I'm talking about United Way, Catholic Charities. I'm talking about housing agencies. We do a lot of work with the county attorneys and the judges. The thing about United Way and Catholic Charities is they don't have lawyers. So we have the lawyers who can specialize in troubleshooting and solving the problems of the working poor in your districts. We have corporate sponsors in Kansas that understand what we do and support what we do. T-Mobile is a big supporter of what we do, and they help us put on clinics. And Senator Warren came to one of our clinics in Olathe. Senator Haley had to leave, but we do 2 major clinics in Kansas City, Kansas every year. Koch Industries understands what we do, and they're all about second chances, and they support what we do both in terms of bringing volunteers and supporting us financially. And I expect that next year I'll be reporting on partnerships with Cargill and Garmin. We're really excited about that. So let me give you a couple examples, specific examples of things that we do that might have relevance to your outlook. Senator Reichman, I know you're from Meade, and I have asked for examples from some of the attorneys about specific clients we've helped in your district. And I got this report from a woman. This is what the attorney from Dodge City said. It's a 71-year-old female who just learned she had cancer and wanted to make sure she had her affairs in order. She didn't have many assets. I advised her on non-probate transfers, payable on death. She was also struggling to find someone she trusted to act as an attorney. In fact, we're working on that. So that's an example. I'll give an example. In Concordia, Robert Walsh is a good friend of mine. This is a case of a mother who was back on her feet after having years of addiction, and she was struggling to have an attorney, to find an attorney to help her. And she now is going to AA. Her life is together, but the original parenting plan that was in place when she was struggling, she couldn't get changed. So the KLS attorney in Salina helped her change the parenting plan that she had in place, and we did something for her that no other attorney would do. She didn't have any money, and there's not a lot of attorneys in Concordia, although it's a wonderful place there. I've got a couple other examples. Disaster advocacy. I know Senator Titus isn't here, but Westmoreland had a tornado, and this is a big thing with our major funding organization, Legal Services Corporation, is they fund initiatives for our attorneys to interface with residents who are impacted by natural disasters. And so we were involved on the ground with a lot of community meetings. The studies say that an individual impacted by a natural disaster could have anywhere from 10 to 15 separate legal problems. And we have one attorney who spends about 20% of her time on these specific cases. And even today, she has 2 clients from Westmoreland who were impacted by that tornado. As you might imagine, the insurance, I mean, you lose everything in this day and age where identity and proof of ID is so important. There's an enormous amount of problems. Another example, family law. We do limited family law. We turn away about 70% of the people who need help because we don't have the bandwidth. But we do limited family law cases. And when you talk about these jurisdictions that have a shrinking number of lawyers, most of the lawyers that are there don't want to get involved in family law. Another area we do a lot with, and I know we have veterans on this, is we got a grant from the VA for veterans who are at risk of homelessness. And so we have an attorney who is interfacing a lot with the VAs around the state, and we were able to do that work for free. We do a lot of work with Social Security Administration. As you might imagine, anyone dealing with the government these days, it's extremely frustrating. We have specialists who deal with, and I'm talking about people who might be entitled to survivor benefits or disability or just trying to get the benefits that they've already earned. We have specialists who know how to deal with the Social Security Administration, know how to challenge them, know how to appeal those determinations, and that's a huge part of what we do. 2 other ones I want to describe, and then I'll have hopefully a little time for questions. Driver's license restoration is a huge part of what we do. Now, let me tell you, I'm going to take a few minutes to tell you the little story about how we got here. We made a request to our national funding agency in Congress for what they call a pro bono innovation fund. And pro bono is kind of the term of art for lawyers who are working for free. We received from essentially Congress $340,000 to set up a series of driver's license restoration projects. Some of you know Kansas has about 220,000 Kansans who have suspended driver's licenses. Now, the reasons why those licenses are suspended might surprise you. It's not because they had a DUI. It's not because generally they were in an accident. They get a suspended driver's license because they might miss a court date or they didn't pay a fine. So just take, for example, gardens. Now, the Department of Revenue for the state of Kansas, they keep statistics. So you can call them and find out what county. You can call, I know in Miami County has 704, somebody over here is from Miami County, 743 suspended licenses. Okay, listen to this. Garden City, where unemployment is 2.5%, there's 5,000 residents that have suspended licenses there. It's 6.4%. So we have taken this as a cause for us with this funding. And I have a handout here that's in your materials, but we've had tremendous success, and the legislature has made it easier for judges to restore driver's licenses. All of these cases need to have a judge at some point approve it, okay? But with this project, we've had 90 driver's licenses reinstated and 42 licenses that were previously completely suspended to be restricted, with an estimated economic impact of $2.7 million. So that is kind of the prototypical client that we're helping, somebody who's trying to get ahead and something is holding them back. So I bring this up because it's certainly our hope that the success that we've had with these driver's license restorations clinic, that we can replicate that with some additional funding from the legislature. And I'm really not here to talk about that right now, but this is a huge area of unmet need. And none of us really know for sure what the impact of some of these immigration initiatives are going to have, but there's no question that if somebody can't drive, they're going to have a difficult time paying their fines and fees and getting back on their feet. So Driver's license restoration is a huge part of what we're doing, but it's a very small part of what we're doing. And the last thing I want to mention is expungement. And I do have a slide on this. I don't know if, I think it's like the 9th slide. Expungements are another great story. It's expungement clinics. I think it's the 9th page. You can put it up. I want to speak briefly about expungements. In this day and age, every employer is doing background checks. People who aren't even hiring are doing background checks. And 1 in 3 Americans has some criminal offense in their background. 1 in 3. And what you're seeing is Kansans, so there, this is really informative, I think, because we started this initiative of clinics, and we go out around Kansas. We have been to, you can see some of the cities there that we've listed this: Independence, Kansas; Pittsburgh; McPherson; Salina; Abilene; Topeka; Great Bend; Hayes; Dodge City; Hutchinson. I know we have a Clays here. Your brother came to our one in Abilene. And these clinics are wonderful because the judges love them, the county attorneys love them, and we're not going to get an expungement for a client unless they both approve. But Kansas has a set of statutes that are pretty forward-looking, that allow the potential for an expungement depending on a lot of circumstances, and that's why you need to have an attorney normally help the applicant navigate, but allows them to wipe away criminal matters that are old, that are dated, and either are holding them back emotionally or holding them back in terms of the workforce. We call it Project Second Chance. And I think you heard from the secretary talking about getting people back on their feet after they leave prison. What we're talking about is people that in most cases never went to prison, in some cases just simply were arrested. And these things are holding them back. And so these clinics that we've done have been a real big success. In Great Bend, for example, my hometown, we used the community center, and we had Catholic Charities and United Way help find clients and send them to us. We spent a day there. We assisted probably 25 people. Most of the cases we've pre-cleared with the judge and the county attorney. In many cases, they might know the individual involved. And so this is another initiative that we get funding from the legislature. It's not in the OJA funding because, for reasons that I still don't quite understand, it's not included in that. It has to be specially added. I'm not asking for that now, but I just wanted to raise your awareness because with that $200,000, we've been able to do a lot of good. We have about 5 attorneys who do this probably half-time, so they know it, they've learned it, and then they teach other volunteers. We've had about 100 Kansas attorneys who now are volunteering pretty regularly for these clinics. So the bottom line is we did a study. If you could, let's see, I don't know if I'm running out of time, but we did a study that showed the economic impact of what we do, getting people better jobs, liberating them from their mistakes in the past, getting them the benefits, whether it's Social Security or VA benefits, has an economic impact of $75 million. For every $1, it has about a $7 impact in the communities. Our total budget's about $10 million. So bottom line is we make communities where you may not have lawyers at all, and the lawyers that are there, they don't know how to do an expungement. We are giving back and contributing to your communities, and we are constituent service, and I think we do a very good job at that. So I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you for, again, that wealth of information, too, about services that I don't think many Kansans are aware of. So are you educating Kansans that you guys are around? And
well, it's interesting in an era where if you turn on the TV and you see an attorney advertising about, have a wreck, get a check, we can't solicit clients. We can't advertise. Now, we do have a lot of partners to get the word out, but we get about 220 phone calls a day to our intake center. So a lot of, certainly in these areas of the driver's license and expungement, people, they don't know of these opportunities. we've done a very good job of creating a lot of publicity, a lot of news stories, a lot of TV stations and newspapers like the feel-good nature of what we do. And so we have had quite a bit of news stories, but there's still a lot of people that don't know of these opportunities, and we're doing all we can to change that.
Well, it was neat to see the folks at the expungement center and the interaction between the attorneys and Kansans coming in, seeing if they could find some relief for their issue that they had on expungement questions. So thanks for providing that. Committee, are there any questions? Yes, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for being here. One of the things you didn't touch on, but that I think is a wonderful service, and I want to make sure my colleagues know about it, are the self-help clinics you've done in 11 counties. Can you just talk a little bit about those and the services that are offered through that? I think those are a huge benefit to those communities.
So if I could get the IT guy, could you go back just one more slide to, I have a slide on the self-help centers. What, members of the committee, what you will find if you talk to judges in these counties, in your counties, in Johnson County, about half the people that go to court have no attorney. They either can't find an attorney, can't pay an attorney, or think they can do it themselves. And this has been a really important initiative, these self-help centers. Now, we get this funding from the Supreme Court funding, but what we have is we have an individual at court, typically with their own space, and it's a resource for people who come in and have questions. So today on Thursday, we have a person in the Johnson County Court, but as you can see, we're spread out, and if you are interested in us starting this service in one of your county courts, I would say talk to me, and we will ask the Supreme Court for additional funding, because this is funding to worry about. This is a service we're provided by the Supreme Court. I know you heard from the chief yesterday. This is under the Access to Justice, ATJ. But what happens basically is an attorney is there, and they're there all day, and people come in, and we don't represent anybody. We give them advice and counseling. And honestly, about 75% of the time, they need to be told directly, you're wasting your time. There's a lot of misinformation about people's rights and responsibilities, and that's an important service. That's an important service for someone to be told, you're too emotional wrapped up in this. You need to dedicate your energy into something else. But on the other hand, there are cases where we help people fill out the forms. We help people understand what they can and can't do at court. But these judges, of course, love us because we help them run their dockets. And the court personnel, if you've been to court, if you've been to the clerk of the court, there's a huge sign that says we cannot offer legal advice. So we're there, and we help speed up the system. And so the self-help centers are a huge part of what we do, and it's a growing part of what we do because the numbers of people who are showing up without attorneys is only going to continue to increase.
Thank you for touching on that subject too. Committee, are there other questions? Senator Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Keenan, for your time today. One brief statement and then one question. I'd be interested in understanding for expungement and driver's licenses, if there's opportunities for streamlining those processes and advocating for our citizens so that they're not spending so much time tying themselves up with legal need and whatnot. So I think that would be a conversation I think would be interesting to many of us as senators to understand if there's opportunities to make things better for our citizens in that regard.
Absolutely. I mean, you're preaching to the choir on that. Please know that I've gone for 20 minutes and haven't mentioned AI, so I'm going to do it right now. But they are coming out with a lot of software where the self-represented applicant can navigate all of these things very, very quickly. And in some cases, it might be just going to an attorney and saying, I've done all this, you think we're in good shape. Yes, there's no question that they're making great strides in empowering people who can't find an attorney or can't get an attorney to do some of these things themselves. I think 2 or 3 years from now, you're going to see a transformation in that regard. Right now, most of those tools are expensive. I'd rather be at not at the leading edge of some of these things, but yes, there's no question. We have we're going to make progress, but Kansas will probably be near the end. But I think it is happening, and I think there's a lot of really great potential there because this attorney shortage is only going to grow. And I would say one other thing, the technology we're allowing remote appearances to court hearings in Seward County or pick your county, that helps us a lot because although we do have an attorney in Dodge City, for him to go to Seward County is quite an effort, and we're making some progress with courts allowing him to appear remotely, but we've got a ways to go there too. So, yeah.
And then my question is, do you work at all or leverage the state's research and extension network, since that's present in all 105 counties, to access potential citizens in need in all those counties?
I'm going to direct that to TK. Do you know? No? I think that's maybe something we need to be exploring. I appreciate that. I'll give you my card and we can talk about that. But we don't want to reinvent the wheel on anything. And but we still have a lot to learn in that regard. So.
I want to mention, do we have any other questions before? I have one question. We heard on Tuesday from BIDS and about pay, quite frankly, for the attorneys, and was wondering with the Kansas Legal Services attorneys, how does their compensation compare to, for instance, BIDS to our prosecutors? Now, I understand we're talking criminal attorneys versus working in the civil area, but is the pay parity kind of there, or it's not?
It's not. It's not. I mean, with all the pay increases that BIDS has received, we're lagging quite a bit, at least $10,000 or more on starting salary. BIDS has done us a favor in other ways too, because there are some individual county contracts that we have where we're paid on an hourly basis. For example, child advocacy matters like child in need of care contracts, and we are requesting the BIDS $120 an hour rate, which they pay to outside lawyers when they have a conflict. So BIDS has helped us, but we're easily $10,000 less than what they're paying starting attorneys. We're catching up. We are, and that's been a big priority of mine. But as a nonprofit that relies on funding largely from the state and from Congress, it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
With different roles to play also. When we're talking about the criminal context, obviously we're filling a constitutional right to defense counsel in the criminal context versus in the civil. There's not the same constitutional right or obligation of the state to provide an attorney when you can't afford one. So,
like I said, there's really no civil matters of what I've been talking about. There's not a single one where anyone has a right to an attorney. And a lot of people don't understand that. Even lawyers of my vintage don't fully appreciate that. So this is good. I think this is really informative, and hopefully we can keep these conversations going.
absolutely. Well, and I wanted to mention on a personal note, Mr. Keenan and I have worked together. You mentioned you were in private practice for 37 years, I think, and you can tell in his private practice, if you haven't seen from his presentation, but I will mention, I think he was the director of the pro bono services section of the large private law firm that you worked at. So yeah, I think you can see his servant's heart, and with the pro bono work that now he does exclusively, but that has always been part of his private practice, I think, as well.
Right. Well, someone told me, learn, earn, return. So I've got a lot of returning to do.
Well, you are doing a good job. So thank you for helping Kansans with Kansas Legal Services and for your presentation today. And just so you know, the clock in here is a few minutes fast, so it is now noon, not after 12 o'clock.